This is Operation B, the podcast about living with intention, building what feels true, and dropping the things that don't. A place where purpose meets practice. I'm Jamie Thurber, your host, and together we'll explore how to live with clarity, freedom, and alignment without burning out or losing yourself, because it's time to be who you're meant to be. Let's get into it. This episode of Operation B is brought to you by Premium Kitchen and Bath. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Operation B. I'm your host, Jamie Thurber. Thank you so much for being here today. Wherever you are in the world, I hope that you're able to drop your shoulders, take a deep breath, and settle in with me so we can talk about a couple of things that I think are really important. If there's something that you've noticed about me over the years, it's that growth is very important to me. Obviously, I've continue to focus on it. It's a continued thing of importance to me across the board. And so with that, I think it's important that we talk about what comes along with it. So for me, I would say that growth, chasing that consistently, keeps me feeling satisfied. It keeps me feeling confident or in the integrity of who I am as a person. It helps me continue to feel present. I think that being focused on learning or expanding or paying attention, like for me, that's what growth is a lot, I think, is observation. And then what I do with those observations counts as growth. And for a lot of people, growth can feel really lonely. So it can turn into something that feels a little isolating because we're going through things that other people may not always be able to understand. But more importantly, we shouldn't have to explain them to others, especially when we're in the growth moments, when we're in the moments of figuring things out, where like roots are starting to grow and really sink down in there. That feeling is hard to put words to. I remember going through like the depth of my physical healing, which was accompanied obviously by a lot of emotional and mental healing as well. And going through that, it made me realize how much I wasn't able to put words to what I was experiencing or what I was learning or taking under my wing into being a part of who I am. So being able to explain that to someone was almost impossible. And something that I realized this last time around, because growth and learning and expanding and those kinds of things is not something new to me, but this last really big chunk when I took over the things that were going on in my body, well, really I didn't take over. I decided to surrender to my body and let it take over instead of my brain. I learned that the thing I thought I was doing to help myself by talking to people about it a lot, by sharing information, by updating people all the time, the thing that we think we're supposed to do was actually hurting me in a lot of ways. It was actually exerting precious energy that I didn't have much of, energy that I needed so that I could be okay, so that I could really close that loop. The circle could actually close of the growth that I was trying to create or that I was working on creating. I had what I needed to actually close it up and finalize that, where a lot of times we don't ever finish things because we're constantly distracted or we're giving too much of ourselves to others in a way that never lets us fully support or lets us fully sink into the things that we're learning or doing or really wanting. And so it often creates distance for that reason. And honestly, it needs to an extent. Like, you need to be able to be with your own thoughts. It's important that you're able to decide things for yourself. You're able to process what you're experiencing. I would say like doing it with a therapist or a coach doesn't necessarily take away the lonely part. But those are not typically things that your friends and family members are capable of talking through with you. At least in my experience, it really wasn't. A lot of the things that I was going through, you have to remember, people who love you a lot will have their own emotions and feelings towards what has happened to you or what you're doing. And so it's hard for them to be able to give you advice or just listen or be the sounding board that you need when they don't fully understand, or they have decided for themselves already, at no fault to them, but they've decided to themselves already that that's the thing they want for you. So we don't want that to be influenced in that way. And we need to, release the pressure or guilt around it, I think, is one of the biggest things that I've had to let go of, and that I think I wish society would let go of as far as growth goes and different stages and seasons of our lives, is this like unspoken obligation that we need to stay up to date and in touch with every single person that we know in our entire world. Like, I have people that I've been friends with for a very long time that I don't talk to all the time anymore, and they're still my very good friend. And it's not that I'm not talking to them because of any other reason than I've had to focus inward, because we all have to do that sometimes. And it's just part of what's necessary. So grieving versions of ourselves and the relationships that we've had is important too, because a lot of our relationships that we create, let's be honest, most of them are not created on healthy terms. So we're creating relationships that are codependent, that are pressureful, or have obligation involved when no relationship should. And it's not everyone is capable of meeting you there. And so as a result, when we're choosing ourselves and we're choosing growth, it can cause us to grieve what used to be, or grieve how you wish that could be, or parts of you that just thought they were doing their best. That grief part is so undervalued and not discussed, but it lives there. Especially, I know for women, a lot of us, we don't do angry, and we don't do rage, and we don't do grief out loud unless it's something that we think everyone else could understand why we do it. Where that's what's also funny about the world. Like, if our grief isn't something that you can relate to, then it's not worth us talking about. It's like, no, we're allowed to have all of our feelings without other people's influence or other people's opinions being a part of it. So I think a lot of people are not getting to that full circle growth moment because they're not letting themselves feel the feelings around what has to change in order for us to level up in some ways. So does that mean we have to have hard conversations sometimes? Yeah. Does that mean that we have to let things go or people go sometimes? Yeah. But when you're looking at the thing, it will always come down to what makes the most sense? What do I really want? How bad do I want it? And sometimes that means leaving parts of ourselves or parts of, old relationships behind. That's not a negative thing. It doesn't mean you're like, oh God, I hate that person. It's like, no, I still love that person. And that doesn't mean we're not friends. And that doesn't mean that we won't support each other in the future. It's just, this is where I'm at right now. And that's okay. I think the other part that kind of comes along with the distance and with the grieving of versions of ourselves or relationships is that during growth moments, I think we start to realize how many places we would shrink down in order to make other people feel comfortable. And when you know that, my hope for you, when you notice where you're doing that, my hope is that you never do it again. My hope is that you make a promise to yourself that you will never do that to yourself again. You will not shrink or be less than or smaller or quieter because your personality or your abilities or your presence or your essence as a human makes other people uncomfortable. As long as the things that you're doing are not harming others, tell me why you should shrink it. If anything, you shine, right? There's a reason I have a lighthouse on my arm. You shine every day, and some people will be blinded and they will hate the light. And that's their thing to handle. Other people will be guided by it. That's the beauty of the moment. That's the beauty of making that commitment to ourselves. I think that's the only way we stop shrinking, is by noticing those moments where we letting ourselves have the feels about it, and then making a commitment to ourselves to never do it again. Because no one makes that decision but you. No one puts you in that spot but you. You let it happen. And how do we come back or how do we recoup from that? Well, we can create rules where, or I'm going to give you a permission slip right now that if you catch yourself doing that, that doesn't mean you can't step back into that room or pick the phone up and call that person back and correct the situation. Say, actually, that's not what I meant. This is what I meant. We can do all of those things. I think that when we allow ourselves to go through the full circle moments of different types of growth, the lonely feeling can start to fade when we honor who we are. We honor who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it. We look at it as something that isn't hurting anyone. It's something that's helping us. And the more whole we are, the more we can help other people or be there for the people that we love. So finding safe places where you can fully be seen, I believe for me, it was just opening up to the possibility. There were two things I guess you could say about that for me. Finding places that were safe for me to fully be seen required me to acknowledge the places that were not safe. And then it required me to be open to finding places that were. It required me to be open to communicate in ways that were vulnerable and that might cause someone to think I'm too big or too much for them. And that's okay. Because if you don't put some of that out there and you're not open to finding safe places and safe people, you're always going to find yourself surrounded by the other stuff, the uncomfortable stuff, the like, I'm not who I am stuff. Because the majority of things I've found out is your opinion or your want in most situations isn't hurting anyone. Let's use my wedding as an example. I want all of the guests at my wedding to wear black. It is a requirement, like dress code. Everybody's wearing black. Does that mean you have to wear a black shirt under your black suit? No. Does that mean that your dress can't have a little bit of another color in it? No. Those kinds of questions have been coming and I haven't even sent out save the dates yet. And I'm also going to do black linens. So the tablecloths will be black on the tables. The chairs are black. We'll have silver charger plates, white napkins. It's going to be very classic and beautiful, and I love it. And a lot of people have opinions about that, though. Well, don't you think it's going to be too much black? Is everyone going to blend in? Well, what if someone shows up and they're not in black? How are you going to handle that? And I'm just like, here's the deal. Me choosing a year before my wedding to tell people to wear a black dress or black suit or black shirt is not hurting anyone. So why would anyone else have an opinion about it? Why would someone get upset or create stress for me or pressure on my mom or whoever about that rule? And here's the truth. If that upsets someone, that's not my problem. I can't do it's a silly thing to cause an upset for someone. So I'm not going to adjust myself in a way that requires, I'm not going to. I can't even find words for that. Like, I'm not going to. That doesn't harm anyone. So that's really a great, simple example. The majority of the things, if you're making a decision that's good for you and it's not hurting people, you have to let go of their opinions of it. And if that makes you feel lonely, please choose to be open to finding people who get you, because you'll find them. But you have to be open to it. You have to be that committed to that part of not shrinking. Because then if you meet people and you're shrinking, you meet new people and you're shrinking yourself all the time, they never get to know the real you. So therefore, how can you expect them to be able to be your long-term friend when you're vulnerable and open and all those things if you've never shown them that before? So those are the parts that actually make growth. After the lonely part, they make it so beautiful and so worth it. So that's the part that I hope that you can find in this conversation. And that's the part that I hope you can take away. The takeaway for me here is that you're not alone. Your feelings are very, very valid. Finding emotional safety is something that's extremely important, not talked about nearly enough, and something that only we have control over. So I hope that you can take some of this, help feel better, make more sense for thoughts in your head, whatever it might be. And if you have questions, as always, you can email me directly and ask. I'm happy to respond and assist where I can or offer resources where I can. If you liked this video, please make sure that you give it a thumbs up or a heart wherever it is you're watching or listening. Share it with someone who you think could benefit from us. That helps us support the podcast. And if you have not already, please go over to wherever you listen or watch and leave a review, as it helps us so much get this word out to more people. And in a world that's a little sketchy these days, more messages like this can do nothing but help the collective. So I appreciate you listening and I appreciate your help. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Bye. You know, I used to think hot tubs were just for fancy vacations or luxury houses. But then I met Angie at Spas and More, this family-owned and operated business right here in St. Louis. She showed me how these master spas aren't just luxurious, they're about wellness. I actually got to try one out in their showroom, and it made me realize how much better I feel after a soak. If you want to experience what actually fits your lifestyle, go see Angie and her team in Sunset Hills. It's like test driving your own wellness. Visit Spas and More in Sunset Hills or online at spasandmorestl.com. Thank you for listening to Operation B, the podcast. To support this message and to support the show, please make sure that you like, follow, and share wherever you enjoy listening. And be sure to leave us a review on iTunes. That's the way to support this message. Thank you for being here, and see you next time.